So what we have here is a Moen faucet that you can see has a drip. This particular faucet is probably about 20 years old. The cartridge has never been replaced, and so what we're going to do is replace the cartridge today and see if that will solve our drip that we have here. The first thing that we need to do is we need to remove this little cover here, and that will allow us access to a set screw that will let us take the handle off. So on my particular model, the Allen head that I'm using is a 7/64. So now that we have that set screw out, what we'll do is just lift off the handle. Comes right off. And if you can see here, you have this part here that fits onto this here. The next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to start disassembling this. Let me move you over here. The next step in the process is to remove this Phillips head screw here. You may need to hold on to this a little bit. Sometimes, especially if they're old, they may want to twist on you a little bit. Sometimes they can be a little fiddly, but it should come right out. I don't know if you guys will be able to see. I'll try and bring it in a little closer where we can get both, and we can maybe use the reflection of the mirror. So if you look sort of back here, you've got this piece here. On the underside of this is a little tab, and I'll show that to you guys here in a second. And on this piece here, yes, okay, we can still see that. So this here is where we took the screw out of, and it's a little plastic piece that rotates. It's almost like a little clamshell that goes into a little metal piece, and I'll show you that here in a second. Taking this off is actually pretty easy. Putting it back on is kind of fiddly. But again, if you take your time and don't get frustrated with it. But this little piece here is kind of part of the little decorative ring that's under here. So to take this off, again, like I said, what we need to do is sort of lift this up and at the same time kind of rotate it back. And then that will pop out. So we have this little piece here, and that your screw goes through this, and then right here is the tab, and where that tab fits is the tab fits basically under here, under this gray plastic piece. So once we have this piece off, we can set that aside, and this little plastic piece will lift right off. Set that aside as well. Our next step will be to remove this gray piece here. It should just twist out counterclockwise, meaning going to the left. However, if it's like my situation where this has never been opened up for 20 some odd years, you may have on the inside threads, you've got it's a plastic piece here, and then you've got another plastic piece down here that this threads into. And over time, what can happen is the calcium and minerals can sort of lock it up. So what I'm going to do is I have a bottle of Zep calcium, lime, and rust, and I'm just going to go ahead and squirt it around here and then let that sit for a little bit, and hopefully it'll get down in there and penetrate, and it'll make it a little bit easier for me to use. In my case, this was stuck on here pretty good, so I did need to use the Zep. And I took just a regular old cloth. They may make a tool for this that you can use, but I found just by kind of getting a cloth on here and then giving it a twist, that it allowed this piece to go ahead and come off. So again, that comes off, and we can see, I don't know if you guys can see down in here, the threaded portion of it. So it will allow this decorative piece, it just lifts straight up and out. And if this stuff in here is really corroded, it may be a good time to go in here with something like a CLR remover, or if you don't have that, you can just use household vinegar and spray it on there, and it will start to eat away at some of the mineral deposits. So what we're looking at here is we're actually looking at the reflection in the mirror. This is a little retaining clip right here, and we need to get that out. So we'll take our pick, and if you didn't have this, you could use maybe even like a toothpick or whatever, and then you can just go ahead and get that out. And that is what that looks like. So with this, you do want to take note of the orientation. It just sits in here. So notice that this plastic part here, the tab, is up at the top, and it just sits in there. So on the inside of this, it's smooth, and again, this part needs to go towards the back of the faucet. So again, it just sits in on there like that. And I don't know if you can tell, but there is a washer that is right here. And I'll just lift that out. And we'll set that aside. So we're at the point where we're going to pull out the cartridge and replace it. The replacement cartridge is a Moen 1225, and in my case B. And if you are the original owner of the home, Moen has a program where you can call them up and say, hey, this is the faucet that I have, it's leaking, and they will send you this stuff out for free. It takes a couple of days for them to get it to you, but I found their customer service is very helpful. You can even do a thing where you can take a bunch of pictures, get on the phone with them, and then text them the pictures so that the person you're talking to can see the same thing that you're seeing and make sure to give you the proper replacement stuff. So again, Moen 1225B. So in the instructions that Moen gives you, this would be, let's see if we can get this in here. This would be ours, the type of thing that we have, and they kind of give you the stuff on how to take things out. And then on the back here shows you how to, remove the cartridge using this thing. So the way that this thing works, again, if we look on the new one, it's clear, and you see it's clear here. So that kind of keys into this, and it's the same on this one that's in here. Also, with the new cartridge, it's going to feel kind of like slick or oily almost. You don't want to take a rag and wipe that off. You want to leave that on, because what that allows you to do, it's silicone, a lubricant that allows you to take and put your new cartridge into the area here. The reason that you're given this is, again, so that slots in like that. Over time, it can kind of solidify in there with the mineral buildup. So they want you to just take a wrench, and then you'll just sort of move that back and forth. And what that will do is it will loosen it up enough to where then you can go ahead and pull it out. This is also useful for aligning the cartridge so that you have the hot water coming out on the correct side and the cold water coming out on the correct side as well. Alright, so let's see if that has loosened that up enough for us to get a pair of pliers on there, and we'll pull this straight out. So I kind of had to yank this thing out off camera just because it's down in there pretty good. But it's orientated the way that it was originally. So I wanted to show you on here, the cartridge has Moen on this side. On the opposite side it just has the numbers. I think that with this that you can maybe get the hot and cold kind of mixed up. So what I'm going to do on the replacement cartridge, which you can kind of see in the reflection in the mirror over there, but on the replacement cartridge, when I put it in, I'll put it in with the Moen going to the right, and we'll see, hopefully that will make sure that the cartridge goes in right and I won't have to worry about anything. If for whatever reason, so I guess we could say too, on these holes here, you don't want, so you want the holes kind of going, what we'll call horizontal. You don't want them going vertical. So again, I'm trying to make sure that it's all lined up correctly and that the holes are going the right way. And let's see if we can get that pushed down. I may need to use that, and I'll use a cloth here, and then all I'm going to do is put the cloth over here and just push it down till it bottoms out. And that should do it. So now what we'll do is we'll start the reassembly process. Alright, you can see that it's dripping, and that's because I have this stem is pulled up and it's open. So if you push this in and you don't push the stem all the way in, you may think, oh no, it's not working, but just go ahead, push that down, and then you won't have any more drips. So for us, that solved our problem of the constant drip. So now we come to the reassembly, and we take our washer, and it goes on like that. And then we take our plastic piece here, and again, it's not threaded, it will just sit. It goes on like that. And again, we want to make sure that we've got this piece that sticks up here is facing toward the back of the faucet. So I don't know how well this will show up, but I did want to show you something here. Normally, you'll put this on, and then your retainer clip goes on there. Sometimes when you put that big white plastic piece on and go to put the retainer clip in, it's not going to want to go in. So right now it doesn't look like it wants to go in kind of at an angle. And the reason why is we have that little raised part on the cartridge right here. And that needs to be rotated over to the right just a little bit. And that's what we'll use, again, our tool here for. So if you find that that's the case, that this needs to be adjusted just a little bit, you got to make sure to take your washer off, or it won't let your tool sit down, your adapter tool basically, to sit down there. So again, what we're going to do is just give this a tiny little adjustment about like that. And then we can take our pin and we see now that it fits pretty good. It actually could probably go maybe a tiny bit more, but not much. That's probably a little much. And again, this stuff can be a little fiddly here and there, but there we go. So that's going to let that go in. So again, this piece sits in here. We have the taller piece going back, and then it will allow us, well, see, I almost forgot something, huh? For those of you who are astute and you're saying, hey, put that washer back on. So we put our washer on, then we put that there, and our pin goes right in. I don't know if we'll be able to get it. So here in the mirror, we can see that it goes in and it's flush in there. None of this should be sticking out. So, but it can be a little fiddly when you go to put that in. So sometimes you gotta kind of wiggle it, but it will slot all the way in. Also, now is a good time. So we're gonna put this piece back on here. If this is really gunked up, now is a good time to go ahead and clean it. We'll go ahead and take this and we'll carefully screw it back on. And with this, you just want to make sure that it's not cross-threaded. It is plastic, so you can kind of chew up the threads pretty good if you're not careful. It doesn't need to be super tight. It just needs to be able to be snug and have a good fit. You may need to do kind of like I did before with the cloth. Like I said, they may make a tool that kind of cinches down on that. I don't have it if they do. So I'll just take this here and get it as snug as I can. And I think that will be good enough. Next step is to put this piece on here. As you can tell, my piece here is a little calcified, so I'm going to try and get that cleaned up as best I can. So not 100% perfect, but good enough. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is we need to, remember we've got the little tab here, and where the tab goes is it fits into the underneath here. So right in through there, and if you can see in the reflection on the mirror. So that's what we want the tab to do. But we also have to at the same time have this line up with that top of that new cartridge. And it can be a little fiddly. Let's see if I can get it on the first run. I may have to cut it off, cut the camera off and kind of mess with it. But what I found is if you can kind of lift this up like that, you can kind of get in back here and get that on, and then sort of rotate that like that. Hopefully my hands were probably in the way, but so that's kind of that. So next what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll take our screw and we'll put that back in, our Phillips head. And all you need to do is just tighten it down to where it stops. You don't have to over tighten it or anything like that. Again, if your interior of your handle is really gunked up, go ahead and maybe clean that up as well. I'll probably go ahead and clean this up once I get the water back on. But for a final assembly, all we would do is take our set screw, and again that goes in through here. This, you've got two holes, and that's for that little pin to go into, but your set screw is going to go in through here, And there's a, can you see? There's a threaded part here. So this tab here goes into that slot. And your set screw will go through here and then it goes into that tab there. But for the test, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn the water back on. I'll see how the faucet does, and I'll make sure that we've got hot on this side and cold on this side. If it isn't, I'll have to take some stuff apart, and then I would just twist that thing 180 degrees. Okay, so I tested the faucet. It works with hot going this way and cold going that way, just to show you guys. That it works in both directions. So again, what I'll do is I will put the set screw back in, and then I will put the, I guess, what do you call it? Decorative indicator. We'll put that back in as well, and then we'll be all set. So I hope this helped for you guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. I am not a plumber or anything. I'm just kind of a regular guy, and I'm somewhat handy. And I find that a lot of stuff that you can do on your own. So if you do have this problem, and again, like I said, if you are the original owner of the house, go ahead and give Moen a call and they will send you out the cartridges and stuff that you need. Again, the cartridge for this particular style of handle is a 1225B. If we can see that. All right, hope it helps. Talk to you next time.